Welcome back for the spooky month. Today's Halloween. Oh my goodness. And we are concluding our Fear Factor series. The Fear Factor. What do we do with fear? I mean, today, we have all of the celebration with, spooky, creepy ghosts and, seances and, all kinds of supernatural, spiritual things. Woo! In this series, we talked about regular fears. We talked about irregular fears. Now we're going to talk about overcoming fear, because I do not believe to the very core of my soul that God designed you to be a fearful person. I would propose to you that fear, if we're not careful and we let fear drive our lives, it will make us a smaller and smaller and smaller until we're almost a non-existent human, irrelevant human. And ultimately, I think that's what the devil wants for you. Jesus tells us in John 10:10, the thief comes to kill, to steal, and to destroy, but I have come to give you life, and life more abundantly. So if Jesus has come to give us life and life more abundantly, then we cannot allow fear to shrink us and dominate and turn us into some person who is completely irrelevant and oblivious. That's the enemy's end game. Jesus' end game is to breathe life into you. So let's look at fear and overcoming fear, some keys and helpful hints to overcome fear. Abigail confronted fear. How did she confront fear? Well, she knew that David was coming to her house to eradicate or to punish all of her household because of her husband being an idiot. He was a fool, truly a fool. Instead of hunkering down and being afraid and paralyzed from the fear, Abigail jumped up, hopped on a donkey, took a whole boatload of provisions, and met David. She confronted the fear that she had, but also confronted by going out, meeting him and talking to him. And I believe that one of the keys for us to overcome fear is to confront it, to look it in the eyes. In my early 20s, I remember I came home from college, it was Christmas break, and I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to college because I was stressed out. And I remember sitting on our kitchen counter, I propped myself up on the counter, and my dad talked with me, and I was crying, I was sobbing. I was so intent on not going back to college. And my dad said to me, he said, "Why are you so freaked out about not going back to college? You can't make me, you can't make me." I mean, this was going, and I'm not an emotional person. I'm not like all cryy and everything. And my dad, he hit the nail on the head. He said, "You know what, Sarah, you're afraid. You're afraid of going back to school. You're afraid of what could happen. And if you run from fear now, it will chase you for the rest of your life." Whew. That was one of the most powerful things my dad ever said to me. And I remember I got in my car, I had to drive 12 hours to get to my university. And it was everything I could to keep the car pointed in front of me to confront the fear instead of running from it. So I think this is a really helpful key, is to confront the fear rather than avoid or run from it. I think it's really powerful when we look at Barnabas in Acts chapter 9 and 10. This is when the newfound church was afraid of Saul, who was going around persecuting and killing the church. Saul had a conversion on the Damascus road, and from that conversion, he wanted to meet the church to have them welcome him, but obviously the church was afraid. So Barnabas took Saul, who was changed into Paul, took him under his wing and brought Saul/Paul to the church and said, "I will vouch for him. He's not going to kill you. He's not going to hurt you." And so when we think about this idea of overcoming fear, number one is don't run from it. But number two is look past the fear. If you can look past the fear, there's tremendous potential. Barnabas was able to look past the fear of Saul and what Saul had done. He looked past that fear and saw the potential for who Paul could be. And Paul became one of the most influential key leaders in the founding of the Christian church. I mean, for Pete's sake, how many books of the New Testament did he write? But Barnabas took him under his wing and said, "I'm not afraid. I'm going to look past the fear because I see tremendous potential that's well beyond the fear." And then finally, something to remember. Remember in 1 John it says, perfect love casts out fear. When you feel afraid, when you're, biting your nails and you're tense and freaked out, it's a key reminder to nestle into God. And I say that because God is love, and perfect love casts out fear. So when we nestle into God, this helps us so immensely in the very core of our soul, helps us to know our identity, helps us to be grounded and protected in God, the creator of the entire universe, the ultimate protector, that God is on our side and that we are God's beloved son, God's beloved daughter. So some keys to overcoming fear and wrapping up our Fear Factor series. This is a really, really important series. And I know we didn't start with a joke, but I'm going to give you a joke here at the end. So what does a skeleton say before eating? Bon appetit. I know, it's really good. And next week, we're beginning a brand new series that you will totally love. Stay tuned.